All right. So I think I'm recording. Okay. So welcome to week 4. I know one of the two of y'all have submitted your week 3's individual project. I'm happy so far with the process that the progress both of you all generally making. Kind of wish you'd clean up, one or both of y'all would clean up the APA issues with, such as putting the table of contents references with figures. But beyond that, I mean, I can't foresee either of y'all doing. As long as y'all do the assignments, I can see both of y'all doing progression, and one of the two of y'all will be this is their last class towards graduation. So that'd be a good sign for you to complete. But this is March 15th, which apparently I have the wrong date down here. It's week 4, right? Yeah, week 4. I just had I might have just had the wrong date on it, so okay. Should be 15. Okay. All right. So yep. So this week, make sure you get your discussion board statements in there and your individual project here. This week's discussion board is about you posting either your unit 3 or unit 4 version of your paper, so that other students can review your plan and how you think, what they call the key assessment outline, interpreted the way you want. Basically, just comments on and review of your cohorts paper and giving productive, constructive feedback towards it. That's what I'm looking for. Especially with regards to rules and how they would apply. Business rules and or SQL rules, you can interpret it the way you want. There's a video here on the data loading process I'd like you to watch. The specific assignments for week 4 is describing the specific steps and rationale used for the loading process to extracting and transforming that data to result. If you didn't get the SQL to work, that's okay. If it were pseudocode like. So yep, and if you can, it'd be great to get them into an actual table. That'd be great to see. Then really whether or not you efficiently use the database for script handling. Now we'll have to interpret that as best as we can if you didn't get the SQL to work at all, because I know I wasn't able to get it to work exactly right. In fact, I even got an email from the company of Pentaco for the person who did get it to work right, because you apparently have an old version of it, and it flagged their system as like, well, you're running an unsupported old version. Somebody in your organization's got an unsupported old version. We need to get that corrected. Sorry, but in the end, that was being helped with by people that actually matter. So yeah. So in the DLT process, we're out the database, load the database into tables. ELT, the loading part, is about databases. You put data into temporary tables. You put things into memory. You put stuff into a structure, and then with that information, you transform that data and you put it into something that is unuseful from that point, right? So loading is a major piece of the ELT process, because it's basically where you're actually getting data after it's been transformed, after it's been corrected, put into a series of tables or formats you want. And this way you start making it so that it processes by bringing it into the system in order to be processed. You load it into memory, you load it into SQL statements, you load it into, whichever. So basically you're taking the data as the input and you're processing it. You put it into the process engine so that it can ultimately drive start cranking out the numbers such that, or cranking out the data such that you can process it in a way that makes sense for your final warehouse storage system, and or it's ultimately how it's going to be utilized and how it's going to be populated, right? So all right, things you have to consider is staging the data. So basically how you want the data, where you want it loaded, in what infrastructure you're going to do it, right? So and in cases of having test data, well, sometimes you need to have test temporary data to make sure your engine is working right and your loading process is working right, your transformation process is working right. But you want to make sure you clear out that data, start fresh when you go to operations, right? You don't necessarily want to accidentally bring over test data from your test system into your operational system and inadvertently cause yourself issues long term, right? So one of the more famous pieces is to be what happened back in the voting test data of 2021's governor election. They had to redo the election count that got announced on voting day because somebody inadvertently included all of the test data they had to build out their system, which skewed the results in favor of one person. But it gave a count that was greater than the actual population being voted on at that time. So so they realized that there was an error. So digging into it, they realized that somebody figured out that the test data still existed in that database because they failed to clean it out right. And so they had to redo all of the counts, reprocess all those votes that day. So yeah, so don't be that guy. Make sure you always start with cleansing of your data in the process after you know that your ELT or your loading and your transformation process is working, right? So make sure you work on build clean databases with only the correct data. And sometimes set up databases backups, right? You can be infrequent, like once a week or once a day, or sometimes depending on like Amazon, they do backups that are backups of backups, and they're happening like instant, like around the clock. So it depends on the size of your business, but make sure you have backups work. Make sure you test them. Make sure you recover from them. A lot of people set up infrastructure backup systems early on in the process, but then never test them, only to find out that they failed a couple months into the effort, and they could go on for months to years without ever actually knowing that they had a failure backup. So you don't want a failed backup to last too long, because that put the greater you have those, or the number of those have a frequency of those, the longer they exist, the larger a risk is to your organization to be able to be destroyed by data corruption. So make sure you get active backups. Make sure you ensure accuracy in your information, removing any useless data from the database as soon as you identify it, and your archival process is functional, right? So you work to build accuracy and integrity in your data sets, especially through the loading process. So transformations, make sure they go into the format you actually need at the end. You want to check to make sure the accuracy of your data is received and extracted, uploaded to the server. You have clean data. You clean out the old data. You have clean in new data, and you commit transactions to the database on a regular basis. Make sure you write pseudocode necessary to build load data applications, so you can walk it through from a code test perspective, pseudocode writing style, so that others can make sure you're doing it right and that you're doing everything needed, right? At the very least, make sure that each of those sections of this document has or the process of your load data structure is how you get the file, how you read the file, how you put the file into temporary files or temporary data tables, and then you commit those transactions to a database, clean up the old data, and then how to do the archiving, right? So you got to consider all those pieces when actually building out this process. So poorly cleaned up cleaned up data can cause you wasted space. Developers are historically known from almost comical. The infrastructure side can always find software developers and database developers wasting infrastructure storage resources. For whatever reason, they always find a way. Like many squirrels like to store their food for the future, right? People tend to store unwanted or unnecessary things on the storage array wasting infrastructure space, which always causes a panic later on of how do we get this low? What do we do? How do we get a quota going? How do we clean up stuff? Are we cleaning up stuff from people that are active, or we have to go back and figure out who all left the organization to clean out their stuff? So don't be a database guy who leaves garbage sitting around wasting space on the storage array. While storage is cheap, it's also inconvenient to have to expand it from an infrastructure level. So make sure you do always build in the process to clean up, remove any wasted space, test all your stuff on all the functions of your database. Make sure you have all the APIs functional so that you can build it and use it as needed. So make sure you have room to grow, right? Using good object-oriented programming techniques, you can build robust, dynamic, and reusable applications you can keep on using in the future. And you want to have a good habit to be as a developer. Very organized organization is important. Unlike my room, if you look in the picture, is not very organized at the moment. I need to clean up my table space, my desk space, because I have way too much on that side. There's a bunch of magic cards I'm working on right now for sorting, and over on that side is my 2 alternate computers, including the Commodore 64 I just set up that I need to clean up the desk space on. And you're only seeing like less than probably a quarter of my total desktop space. All right, so anyways, last part of the ELT process, make sure you do cleansing of test data, removing test data from your database so that just like transformation, you can make sure things are good, accurate, and trustworthy from your information. So okay. True or false? Parsing data is the act of uploading data to the database. That is false. Parsing data is the act of figuring out how to extract the data to insert into tables and variables that will store it in a structured manner. True or false? Every table in the database should have a foreign key. False. Typically, keys have primary keys. Those are generally necessary. Primary key is your identity column. Your foreign key is the way it links it between multiple tables. So it's for referential integrity between multiple tables, not necessarily for your individual processing. Referential integrity, foreign key constraints are for to enforce referential integrity. Yeah. Database fields should enforce type safely. Technically, type safety is a process by which to ensure that you prevent errors by having hard checking of your data up front, but it can also cause undesirable program behaviors caused by discrepancy between different scenes of data, programs, variables, constants, and methods, treating integers as floating point stuff. So type safety is also turned over as a proper programming so and then so that when data comes in, it is corrected or prevented if it's bad data from entering your database. But the individual database internally shouldn't need to have to look for that, because if you get that out of your, if that goes haywire, you can corrupt your data in methods that doesn't make a ton of sense and you would never be able to solve. So normalization in the database reduces. That's true, because normalization basically is you're building out and getting rid of redundancy where it's unnecessary, such that your data and then becomes reduced in size and scope and makes it more sufficient. The enforcing and data, you need to enforce data parsing rules as part of the normalization process in order to reduce issues with the data at a later date. So back to discussion board. Don't forget, I want you to post your status, where your paper is. It doesn't matter if it's part 3 or part 4, as long as you provide constructive feedback to your cohort. And definitely get in that updates to me to read if I haven't read them yet. Yeah. So other than that, I think you guys are on a good path, good trajectory. I will make sure I try to grade your homework the best as I can. I'm going to be out in Boston a week from tomorrow, and I'll be flying back on back to the house. I'll be on Tuesday. So if I were to grade any assignments right before the end of this class, I'll be doing that from the hotel room on an unnecessarily small laptop because I need to get rid of my laptop, which has only a 10-inch screen that I can barely read now, to something much larger. But my point being is that Tuesday morning when I get back home, I intend to submit the final grades of that day, and that would be on Tuesday the 28th. So make sure you get your assignments in place. And with that, I hope you guys have a good time and effort. And any questions, definitely reach out. Thanks. Oh, I was going to show you guys the sharing. I forgot to bring up the sharing, did I? All right, so all right, one quick video. All right. Well, with that, thank you for your time and good luck in the following week. Thanks. Bye.